feel safe to travel again.
Right. Well, we all hope that they find a vaccine for this
Yeah, get it
virus.
quickly.
We can move on to our life.
Yeah.
My next things I would like to ask you about it. I'm very fascinated about it. Is the checklist the pilots have to go through? Check fuel, check this, check this. Can you share with us how many checklists are out there for a pilot? I know you guys have a long list.
There's a lot. There's pretty much a checklist for anything. There's a checklist for pre-flighting the airplane. There's a checklist for starting the airplane. There's a checklist for before taking off, while you're in cruise, while you're climbing, while you're descending. There's a checklist for everything. And it's just to make sure you don't forget anything, like you're not complacent. And because stuff gets overlooked, like you could just completely not even think about your fuel or completely miss something. So I think it's very important to use the checklist, especially in like the bigger airplanes. Whether there's like 2 engines or anything like that, like there needs to be a checklist and a routine for everything just to make sure nothing goes missed.
Right. You mentioned in one word, complacent. Make sure you're not complacent. Are you guys being watched for that word, complacency? The instructor, make sure you don't get involved with. You don't become one of them.
Yeah, they're always watching. They're always making sure, like your altitude is right, your heading is right, your rate of climb, your rate of descent, everything, your airspeed. They're watching everything and making sure that we're doing the correct scan of our instruments and that we're not leaving out anything, because once you leave out one thing, then everything else can get messed up. If you're slow on your airspeed, you'll lose altitude or whatever it is. So yeah, they watch, and they're very particular in making sure that you don't get complacent.
Mm-hmm. So when you pilot, you cannot be complacent. You cannot procrastinate, right?
No, you can't procrastinate. We always say get ahead of the airplane. So we're always thinking one step ahead. What can we be doing? If the flight's only an hour, there's always something we can be doing. We can be checking our instruments. We can be looking at the runways for our destination. We can be checking the weather. We can always be doing something.
Do you think there's a room for electric airline, like or solar airline? Airlines could be flying without needing the fuel.
I don't know for sure. I'm not educated in that enough, but I think that would be really cool. Yeah, like a Tesla airplane or something like that. I'm not sure, but I think that would be cool in the future. It just needs so much power to create the amount of lift that you need for flying that I think it would be really difficult. But I think it would be a great alternative if they can make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that the weather condition play a great deal of the success of the fly. So let's talk about flying under the major rain. I mean, a lot of rain. There's a rain, there's a lightning, there's a hurricanes, there's a heat. Which one of them is more difficult? And actually, I was flying one time out of Tampa to Chicago, and there was lightning in Tampa. We couldn't take off for 2 hours. Is that what is they said? Oh, the conditions are bad. We can't take off.
A lot of times, if you can't take off, that means that there was lightning close enough to the airport where it wasn't safe for the ground personnel, like the baggage handlers and the people on the ground, the fuelers and everyone like that. It's not safe for them to be outside. Typically, once you're already off the ground, you can navigate around it. But Yeah, if you weren't able to take off, that means it was the lightning and the storm was probably too close for the rampers to be out, and it was unsafe for them. But I think that's where the pre-flight planning comes into play, because if I know that there's a bad storm at my destination, I'm just not going to go because it doesn't make any sense. And other than that, like if something does pop up or you missed something or for some reason you couldn't get in, that's why we have our charts and our planning, and we can plan for a diversion so we can go to another airport. But that's all stuff that we think about before we even take off, and even a couple of days prior. If it's a big trip, we can look at the radar. If there's a hurricane coming in, we can watch it carefully. But once you're already up in the air, you can always fly to a different airport, or you can just fly around it. It might take a little bit longer, but ultimately that's the safe thing to do. And I'd rather be a little bit late than not make it at all.
Right. So it's fair to say that lightning is dangerous for airplane. And lightning
yeah, there's certain things on the airplane. There's static wicks that take the static electricity from the lightning, and it gives it a way off of the airplane. I think on my little Cessna that I fly, there's 6 of them just on the tail of the airplane that kind of fan the electricity off so it doesn't affect your instruments or anything like that. But you typically don't want to be stuck in that situation. You would just avoid the storm before you got to that point, but it's there just in case.
Okay. What about the bird? Big birds, eagles, crow, vultures, buzzards.
Yeah, they a lot of times when we're getting the weather, they warn us if there's a lot of birds in the area. I think that's very important too, because especially in the smaller aircraft, that can do a lot of damage to your airplane. So yeah, definitely watching for those, because they don't show up on your radar screen for anything like that. So just watching them, and typically birds always dive. So if you're getting close to one, they don't want to be by you either. So they tend to stay away from you for the most part.
Mm-hmm. So it's true that if a bird gets in the engine of the jet, it could kill the engine.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, it depends on how big the bird is or something like that. I don't have a lot of information on that, but yeah, I mean, anything going into the engine is not good, anything other than air. So yeah, you just always want to be careful and watching where you're flying.
What about the propeller? Can a bird damage the propeller?
Yeah, for sure. Just because you're going fast, you're going so fast, and if it's a bigger bird, for sure it can do some damage. So you just want to be careful always.
How fast is the Cessna on the takeoff?
My Cessna, we pull back or we rotate at about 55 knots.
Okay, what is that in kilometer or mile?
I'm not sure. I just have knots on my airspeed indicator. It's about 63 miles per hour. So it doesn't seem very fast.
Okay. So how many people can you fit into a Cessna? Because the word Cessna is very...
In my airplane, I can seat 4, including the pilot. So I can take 3 passengers.
3 passengers plus 2 pilots.
Just 1 pilot. I just need 1.
So your Cessna is a 1 engine, right?
Yep, it's just a single engine.
How come the Cessna is very popular in America? Is there a specific reason for it?
Yeah, it's a very good training aircraft. It's very easy to fly for the most part. The system isn't very difficult. It's single engine. It's relatively inexpensive. Especially if you buy an older one, you can get them for pretty cheap for an airplane. But yeah, it's very easy to learn how to fly. It's a very easily maneuverable and everything like that.
If you're joining us, this is Sekou Radio. Our guest today was Amy SWENSON. Great. She's attending flight school. She's going to be a great pilot. Amy, we want to thank you so much for the instruction and advice you gave us on airplanes and flying. And I'm sure we would like to have you come back in the future.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for your time, and I will inform you when your interview go in air, okay?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.